Felicia's heart raced as she glanced over her shoulder, her breath quickening. The delivery van parked at the back gate seemed like her ticket to freedom. She had spent 3 sleepless nights studying the rhythm of the mansion, finding out when the maids came, when the guards rotated, when Suho's shadow passed by her door. Every pattern was a chain, but every chain had a weak link. And now, finally, she saw it. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted the hood of her borrowed maid's cloak. She had stolen it from the laundry that morning, praying no one would notice one missing. Just walk. Don't run. Don't look back, she told herself. She could perceive the scent of freshly cut grass mixing with the heavy perfume of blooming flowers as she moved across the courtyard. She could almost taste the freedom waiting outside the gates. Her mind raced with thoughts of home, of her mother's laughter echoing in their modest house in Nigeria. She remembered the evenings spent sitting on the porch, sharing dreams of the future, her mother always urging her to chase after them. She had to fulfill them. The driver, a man in his 40s, looked up as she approached, his eyes wary. Delivery's done. Who are you? Felicia forced a polite smile, her voice tight. Suho sent me to collect something from the gatehouse. I won't be long. The man hesitated but didn't question further. He looked away, tapping his phone. Felicia slipped past him, every nerve screaming. The service gate loomed ahead. She reached for the latch, her hand slick with sweat, and pushed. It didn't budge. Her breath hitched. It was locked. Panic surged. She jiggled it harder, glancing back over her shoulder. Come on, she muttered. He had to get out. He had to make it to safety. The driver was staring now, frowning. Hey, what are you? Please, Felicia gasped. Just, please help me. I need to get out. He froze, confusion flickering into fear as heavy footsteps echoed from the courtyard. Felicia turned and her stomach dropped. Suho was there. He stood in the golden light, coat thrown over his shoulders, and his expression was a perfect storm of anger and disbelief. Behind him, 2 guards closed in, silent and watchful. Felicia, he said quietly. Her blood went cold. Open the gate, she shouted at the driver, desperation clawing up her throat. Please, before he... Felicia, he barked, his voice echoing through the van. She scrambled back, panic flooding her senses. Let me go. You can't keep me here. Suho stepped closer, his presence filling the small space. Enough. I've had enough. Fury burned through her fear. Don't you dare tell me to stop. You don't own me, you can't. Before she could continue, he picked her up and dragged her away, his grip like iron. Do you want to die? That's better than rotting in your cage, she spat, twisting against him. I'd rather take my chances than live as your puppet. Shameless stalker. He pulled her close, his eyes blazing. You think you're strong enough to survive out there alone? Do you know how many enemies would tear you apart just to hurt me? I don't care. But I do. His voice thundered, making her flinch. Her chest rose and fell as they stared at each other for a long minute. If you step 1 foot outside without me, you're dead. Felicia's chest heaved, tears stinging her eyes. He hated him. He hated his control. But beneath his rage, she saw something desperate and fearful in his gaze. Her breath came in shallow bursts, the tears now falling. I just want to go back. You can't. You tried to leave through the back gate, he cut in, tone darkening. The one my enemies monitor. The one that would have had snipers watching if I hadn't ordered a rotation this morning. She froze. What? You think this house is locked for your punishment? His voice rose, harsh. It's locked because if they find out you're my wife, they won't hesitate. You wouldn't have made it to the street. Felicia shook her head, tears blurring her vision. You're lying. You just want to control me. I wish I was lying. His voice cracked. You think I enjoy watching every step you take because I know one mistake could get you killed? Then let me go, she cried. If you care at all, let me go and live my life. He stepped forward, jaw tight. You wouldn't last a day out there. Her slap came before she even realized her hand had moved. The sound echoed, sharp as glass. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Suho's cheek reddened where her palm had struck. Felicia's voice trembled. Maybe I'd rather die free than live as your possession. For a long moment, Suho didn't speak. His jaw clenched, his hands flexed at his sides. Then, with terrifying calm, he leaned down until his forehead nearly touched hers. Don't say that again. His voice was quiet, but the weight of it made her shiver. Then he released her, turning away as though the argument had drained him more than a battlefield would. Felicia stood frozen, her breath ragged, her body trembling. She should have felt victorious for defying him, for throwing his obsession back in his face. But all she felt was the storm still crackling between them, the dangerous tension that no amount of denial could erase. And the terrifying truth that she wasn't sure who would break first. "Take her back," he said roughly to the guard at the corner, raking his hand through his hair. "Lock the room." Felicia's knees went weak as the guard led her away. She didn't fight this time. The fight had drained from her, leaving only a hollow ache. That night, Felicia cried until her body gave out. The silk sheets beneath her felt like chains, the air thick with the ghost of his voice. You wouldn't last a day out there. He hated him. But somewhere beneath that hate was a kernel of uninvited doubt. What if he was right? What if the world beyond those gates wasn't freedom, but a different kind of cage? A cage with bullets instead of locks? She pressed her face into the pillow, swallowing a sob. "I hate you," she whispered to the dark. "I hate you for making me doubt myself." Sleep came only when her tears finally ran out. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Suho didn't visit her. Meals arrived on time, left outside her door untouched. The guards avoided her gaze. Even the maids seemed quieter, as if afraid to breathe too loud in her presence. Felicia thought the absence would bring peace. It didn't. It felt like being buried alive. At night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, tears staining her cheeks as she replayed their arguments in her mind. The way he had looked at her, the way he had tried to explain himself. It twisted her heart into knots. "You're mine," he had said. "And one day you'll stop running from that truth." But how could she stop running when every part of her screamed for freedom? After a week of silence, Felicia felt the familiar fire igniting within her. She couldn't stay here any longer. If she failed once, she'd try again. Only that this time she wouldn't rely on luck. He could be smarter about it. She spent hours planning, mapping out the mansion and its grounds in her mind. She needed a distraction, something to draw Suho and his guards away. That afternoon, she noticed the gardener tending to the roses near the south wall, which was the same wall that curved along the forest edge outside the estate. She watched him for hours, memorizing where the cameras turned, where the vines grew thickest. That night, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Felicia seized her chance. She could hear the rain pounding against the windows, and the wind howled outside, creating the perfect cover for her escape. "Now or never," she whispered to herself. Long after the house slept, she slipped out through the balcony window barefoot, wrapped in a dark shawl. The cold bit into her skin, but she didn't care. She climbed down the trellis, her palms raw from gripping the metal. When she reached the ground, she crouched low and ran, heart hammering, breath coming in ragged bursts. The vines were thick but climbable. She tore her robe on the thorns, ignoring the sting. She was halfway up when she heard the distant crunch of boots. "Keep going," she whispered to herself, breath shaking. "Just a little more." The top of the wall was rough under her fingers. Freedom was one pull away. Then a voice, not Suho's, not his guards, hissed from the shadows. "There she is." Felicia froze. A figure stepped out of the shadows. "Going somewhere?" he asked. Her heart dropped. She turned to run, but they were faster, grabbing her arms and pulling her back. "No. Let me go." "Suho," she screamed, panic rising as she fought against their grip, but her scream was drowned out by the storm. But it was too late. Before she could scream again, a cloth pressed over her mouth. The smell was sharp, chemical. Her limbs went weak. "Suho," she cried one last time before the darkness swallowed her. When she came back to her senses, her head throbbed. "Where am I?" she wondered, glancing around. The floor beneath her was metal, the air thick with exhaust and cigarette smoke. She was in a van. Two men sat in the front, another beside her, a pistol resting casually on his thigh. "Welcome back," one of them said, a cruel smirk on his face. Felicia's throat was dry. Where are you taking me? Where's Suho? What do you want from me?" The man beside her smirked. "You talk too much for a princess." She flinched as he reached out, brushing her cheek with the back of his hand. "Pretty thing. No wonder the Beck boy hid you." But her stomach turned. They knew. The man leaned closer. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We won't hurt you much. We just need to send a message. Felicia's breath hitched. A message? To your husband? The words struck like ice. She was caught in a game far bigger than her own. All her attempts to escape had only landed her deeper into the nightmare. Let me go, she shouted, but he only laughed, the sound echoing in the van. No one's coming for you, little bride. You're ours now. As despair settled over her like a heavy shroud, Felicia realized that she had underestimated the danger Suho had warned her about. She was a pawn in a game she never wanted to play. The van jolted as it turned sharply. Felicia's pulse raced, her wrists raw against the ropes. She fought against the panic clawing at her chest. She had to think. She had to survive. I can't let them take me, she vowed to herself. I have to find a way out. She remembered the small silver hairpin still tangled in her hair that was sharp at the edge. She twisted her wrists subtly, inching toward it. She could just. The man beside her noticed the movement and grabbed her chin. None of that. Felicia's breath came fast, but she didn't stop trying. She thought of her mother's voice, of the plane she once took to start a new life in Seoul, of how she swore she'd never let fear own her. Not now. Not even here. Back at the mansion, when Suho got the call, he was in his office, staring at the security feeds. The guard's voice was trembling. Sir, she's gone. Suho's blood turned to ice. What do you mean gone? We found her room empty. The balcony. He didn't wait for the rest. He was already running. Within minutes, his men were mobilized, black cars roaring through the gates. His jaw clenched, every nerve coiled tight. He had told her. He had begged her to stay safe. But she had run again. And now they had her. Find her, he ordered, his voice deadly calm. Find her before they do what they always do. For the first time in years, Baek Suho felt fear claw through his chest, not for himself, but for the woman who hated him enough to run into the fire. Felicia's arms were numb, her pulse a wild drum in her ears. She met the captor's gaze, forcing her voice steady. You think he'll just give you what you want? The man laughed. He'll give anything to get you back. That's the point. Her heart twisted, not in fear but in realization. All the walls, all the warnings, all his control. It hadn't been about power alone. It had been about this. About enemies. About the world that had just swallowed her whole. Felicia looked out the small, grimy window at the city lights flickering by. Her fear grew heavier with each passing minute. Would Suho come? Part of her prayed he wouldn't, because if he did he could die. But another part of her, the part that hated him, feared him, and yet couldn't stop feeling the pull of his presence, knew he would. And she was right. The rain hadn't stopped. It poured against the car windows as Suho's convoy tore through the night. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and white. His knuckles were white against the steering wheel, his jaw locked tight. Trace the van, he barked into his earpiece. Pull every camera from the southern district. I want eyes everywhere. Yes, sir, one of his men responded. Suho's heart was pounding, but his face stayed stone cold. On the seat beside him lay Felicia's shawl, torn, wet, and smelling faintly of her perfume. He clenched it in his fist. She ran, again, he muttered under his breath, almost to himself. Why can't you understand, Felicia? His mind was filled with her voice. I'd rather die free than live as your possession. The night soul burned with noise, sirens, traffic, the hum of neon. But to Baek Suho, all sound fell away except the pounding of his own heartbeat. His eyes were fixed on the tablet in his hand. The live feed from the tracker flickered, a blinking red dot moving across a dim stretch of road near the docks. Warehouse district, one of his men said from the passenger seat. Abandoned sector near the river. Likely Han's people. Suho's jaw tightened at the name. Han Taemin, a rival syndicate leader. He slammed the brakes, the car screeching as they took a sharp turn into a darker alley. His men followed closely behind. He looked like a possessed man, calm on the outside, but his eyes were pure fire. Inside the van ahead of them, Felicia was fighting to stay conscious. Her wrists ached from the ropes. The men were laughing, smoking, and arguing about money. One of them was on the phone. She could barely make out the words, but one phrase kept cutting through the fog. Beck's wife. The foreigner. He'll burn Seoul to the ground to get her back. The words should have comforted her. Instead they made her stomach twist. Because she believed them. When the van turned onto a deserted road, Felicia caught a flicker of headlights behind them. She didn't know if it was the police, a stranger, or something worse. "Boss said not to touch her," the man in the passenger seat muttered. "Yeah, but he didn't say we couldn't scare her," the other replied, smirking. Felicia's breath came fast. "Don't cry. Don't show them fear." She kept her eyes down, pretending to be weak, even as she tried to rub the ropes against the metal seat edge. It burned, but she didn't stop. Just as he was about to reach for her, suddenly the van swerved hard. The driver cursed. "What the hell?" A black car slammed into the van's rear. The impact threw her forward, pain ripping through her shoulder. Felicia screamed as the van spun, tires screeching. Smoke filled the air. The door burst open, and before she could understand what was happening, chaos erupted outside. Gunfire. Loud. Men shouting. Boots on wet concrete. Felicia froze as the man beside her drew his gun. "Stay down," he barked, firing out the window. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. She gasped, struggling against her restraints. What was going on? Through the shattered back window, she saw him appear from the smoke. Suho. He was standing in the middle of the road, his black coat whipping in the wind, gun in hand. "He came for me." His face was calm, terrifyingly calm, like a man who had crossed this line too many times before. The kidnappers opened fire. Muzzle flashes lit the night. Felicia screamed, ducking down as bullets tore through the van walls. Suho moved like water and fired 3 shots ruthlessly. Each one found its mark. The driver slumped over the wheel. The van swerved, crashed into a barrier, and screeched to a halt. Felicia's head hit the metal, white pain blooming behind her eyes. When her vision cleared, the door was yanked open. Suho stood there, gun still in his hand, blood splattered on his sleeve. "Cover him," one of his men shouted. But Suho didn't need cover. He was already inside the wrecked van. The last kidnapper aimed at him, trembling. "Stay back or I'll..." Suho shot him in the leg before he could finish. The man dropped, screaming. Felicia's stomach lurched, bile rising to her throat. Suho kicked the gun away, his voice low and dangerous. "You touched what's mine." The man tried to crawl away, but Suho pressed his boot against his chest. "Tell your boss this is what happens when you cross me." And then he fired once, straight into the man's chest. His scream echoed into the night. Felicia had never seen him like this. He wasn't the cold, silent man who lectured her about safety. He was a merciless killer who didn't hesitate to destroy anything in his way. His men dragged survivors to their knees, disarmed and trembling. He turned, blood spattered across his cheek, his dark eyes locking on her. In 2 strides he was at her side, crouching low. "Felicia." His voice broke. "Are you hurt?" Her throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to curse him, but the words died when she saw the blood running down his arm. "Suho." He ignored the wound, cutting the ropes around her wrists. When she flinched, he murmured softly, "It's all right. I've got you." The gentleness in his tone cracked something deep in her. She wanted to push him away, to scream that she didn't need his help. But when he pulled her into his chest, the smell of rain, blood, and gunpowder mixing together, she just broke. When he lifted her out of the van, she felt the shudder in his chest, the weight of his breath of relief against her neck. He carried her to the car. Behind them, his men cleaned up with silent efficiency. Bodies moved, vehicles torched. Felicia's stomach turned violently. She stumbled out of Suho's grasp, falling to her knees, retching. He stood beside her, his hand hovering but not quite touching. His voice softened, almost gentle. "Don't look. It's over." She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, her eyes burning. "Over? You killed them. Like it was nothing." Suho didn't look at her. "They would have killed you. There was no choice." Her chest heaved. "There's always a choice." "No," his voice snapped. "Not in my world. In my world, hesitation means death. Weakness means you never come home." Felicia stared at him, her whole body trembling. "You're a monster." For a moment, pain flickered in his eyes. Then it vanished, replaced by steel. "Maybe," he said softly. "But I'm the monster who will always come for you." She pressed her palms to her face, shaking. "This is madness. All of it." He finally turned to her. His expression was unreadable. "Welcome to my world." They drove back in silence. Felicia sat in the back seat, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the dark window. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flashes of gunfire, the faces of the men, the sound of Suho's gun echoing. She turned her head. Suho was beside her, his shirt soaked in blood. Some of the blood his, most not. His expression was unreadable. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "No. You." He gave a small shrug. "Nothing serious." But she could see the cut along his arm, the bruise forming near his jaw. He didn't even seem to feel it. Felicia wanted to speak, to ask why he risked everything. But her throat was tight. She turned away, tears welling again. Why does he keep saving me? Why does it hurt to be hated by someone who looks at you like that? They didn't return to the mansion. Suho took her to a smaller house on the outskirts of the city. It was one that looked ordinary from the outside but had reinforced doors and bulletproof glass. Inside, the rooms were dim and sparse. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and gun oil. Felicia sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the dried blood on his sleeve. He was cleaning his gun at the table, movements practiced and quiet. Finally, she broke the silence. "You knew they'd come for me. I warned you." Her voice shook. "You didn't tell me who you were really fighting." Suho's hand paused mid-motion. He set the gun down, exhaling slowly. "You wouldn't have believed me. Try me." He leaned back, his eyes distant. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. Not angry, not composed, just tired. "You've heard of the Soul Syndicate," he began. "But it's not one family. For Bakonmin and we've been at war for generations." Felicia swallowed. "A war? Over what?" "Territory. Power. Legacy." His mouth twisted bitterly. "My father built our empire on blood. He wanted unity, one syndicate under Beck control. But when he died, the others saw weakness. Han Taemin struck first. He killed my brother. Burned our safe houses. Took our people." Felicia stared at him, the pieces slowly falling into place. The paranoia. The locked doors. The guards. "You grew up in this," she whispered. He nodded. "Since I was 15. What about your mother?" "She died trying to run." Felicia's breath caught. Suho's eyes hardened. "They caught her before she reached the border. Sent her back to my father in pieces." A heavy silence filled the room. Felicia felt a sting in her chest. Not pity but understanding. The kind that came from pain meeting pain. "That's why you won't let anyone leave," she said softly. His jaw clenched. "I can't afford to. Not again." Felicia looked down at her hands, her wrists still marked from the ropes. "So you cage people to protect them?" "If I love them, yes." The words came out so simply, so raw, that Felicia didn't know how to respond. Days passed. The news reported an explosion near the docks. Gang dispute suspected. The anchors said, their tones careful. No names were given. In the safe house, Felicia healed slowly. Her bruises faded, nightmares lingering. Suho came and went, always at odd hours, his phone buzzing with coded messages. She heard fragments when he spoke, about territories, deals, and Han's retaliation. One night she found him in the kitchen, pouring whiskey into a glass. "You never stop," she said quietly. He didn't look up. "If I stop, we die." Felicia approached, hesitant. "You can't fight the whole world, Suho." He smiled faintly. "I'm not fighting the world. Just the part that keeps trying to take it from me." "You mean Han Taemin?" His eyes lifted to hers, sharp and cold. "He's not just an enemy. He's the reason I became this." She waited. Suho set the glass down, his voice low. "He used to work for us. My father trusted him, but Han wanted more. When my brother refused to give him control, Han framed him for betrayal. My father ordered his execution. I was the one who pulled the trigger." Felicia's heart twisted. "You killed your own brother?" He nodded once, eyes empty. "By the time I found out the truth, it was too late. Han had already taken everything." The silence that followed was heavy. Felicia could see now, not just the monster she'd called him, but the ruin beneath his armor. The boy that was forced to become a weapon. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "So when you saw me, you wanted something pure. Something untouched by all this." His gaze met hers, raw and unguarded. "I wanted something alive. You were the first thing that didn't make me feel dead inside. Felicia's throat tightened. And so you took me. I thought I could keep you safe. But every time you look at me, I see what I've become. The confession hung in the air between them. For the first time he looked ashamed. Felicia turned away, blinking back tears. She didn't forgive him, not yet. But the edges of her hatred began to blur. I'm sorry, he said all of a sudden. She blinked, turning back to him. What? I'm sorry you got dragged into this. I thought I could keep you safe here, but... He sighed, running a hand through his hair. The world I live in doesn't forgive mistakes. Something in his tone made her chest tighten. He looked exhausted, like the weight of the world sat on his shoulders. Silence fell between them, heavy and aching. Felicia lowered her eyes. You said once that you don't enjoy watching over me. That it's not control. So why do you keep me here? His voice cracked. Because every time I lose someone, it's my fault. My mother. My brother. My men. And if I lose you... He broke off, his fists clenching. If I lose you, I'll have nothing left. Felicia stared at him. For the first time she noticed the faint scars tracing down his neck. They were old, faded, like reminders of wars he'd survived. She hadn't seen them before. She never bothered to look. He caught her gaze, a wry smile forming. Ugly, right? She shook her head. No. Just sad. Something shifted in the air between them. Felicia sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to forgive you. He nodded slowly. I don't know how to stop loving you. Her eyes burned with tears again, but this time she didn't hide them. You're insane. A faint smile curved his lips. You've told me that before. Later that night she woke to the sound of thunder. Rain lashed against the windows, the wind howling. She found Suho outside, sitting on the porch steps, soaked through, staring at the city lights in the distance. You'll get sick, she said softly, stepping out with an umbrella. He didn't move. If I do, at least it'll be something I can't shoot. She stood beside him in silence. The rain pattered softly on the umbrella. After a long moment, Suho spoke, his voice quiet. When I checked the CCTV and found no one in your room, I thought I'd lost the last good thing I had. Felicia swallowed. You almost did. He looked up at her, his eyes tired. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to understand. I don't understand everything, she admitted. But I saw the way you looked at me when you found me. That wasn't control. That was fear. He exhaled shakily. It was both. Felicia hesitated, then sat beside him. You can't keep living like this, Suho. You can't keep hiding behind power. It's eating you. He gave a low laugh. That's all I know. Then learn something else. Their eyes met, rain, thunder, silence. Something in his expression softened, the storm inside him quieting just a little. Maybe, he said almost to himself, you were the wrong person to cage, because you keep reminding me what freedom feels like. Felicia's heart ached. She didn't reach for him, didn't speak. She just sat there beside him as the night washed everything clean. Blood, fear, and for a moment the past. That night, Suho stayed outside her door, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall. Felicia lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the rain and the soft creak of the chair outside. For the first time she didn't feel angry. Just tired. Confused. Torn between fear and something she didn't want to name. He had saved her. He had killed for her. Bled for her. But she still wanted freedom. Maybe both of us are trapped, she thought. Him by his world, me by his love. Tears slipped quietly down her face. And from outside the door she thought she heard his voice, low, rough, and almost broken. Sleep, Felicia. Please, sleep. I'll keep you safe even if you never forgive me. Watch out for episode 3, everyone. Dropping few hours from now. Don't forget to drop your opinions on this story while you await the next episode. Thank you.